recording for everybody's awareness, and I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us for our August Lunch and Learn for the PUC Task Force. And we are happy to have you here. We will post this video on our YouTube channel for those who weren't able to join us live. And we are happy to have Zubin Bestani here with us. From ReachWell, we've had a lot of conversation in Colorado about how to get our emergency notifications out in languages other than English, and Zubin has a solution for us here. So I want to say welcome to Zubin and thank you for being here as presenter. I will turn it over to you, and if anybody has questions throughout, we will leave time for questions at the end. But Zubin, I'll help you monitor any hands that are raised and help you with that if that's all right with you.
It's perfect. Thanks.
All right, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I will go ahead and as I start to share my screen, I'll introduce you to one of my partners here at ReachWell. This is Dan Keegan. Dan, you can wave. And Dan is working with many of our counties here locally in Colorado to help them get onboarded with ReachWell. All right, could I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen?
See it.
Appreciate that. All right, so I'll just give, here's our agenda today. Just make some quick introductions, check. Explain what ReachWell is, how we support dispatch, how we connect community, as well as just some best practices that we've been learning along the way. I'll just kind of share the personal story here, like why are we in this? Why are we doing this? As you can see here, ReachWell is really designed to be an inclusive community engagement platform focused on equity. This is really got started in the K-12 space, to be frank. Then with my son's school, when we recognized that many of those families that were from low income backgrounds or non-English speaking were not receiving communication. They weren't receiving the messages. There wasn't even an opportunity for them to be engaged and participating, let alone be informed. And we started to peel it back, and with school principals, district administrators, community leaders, and we really identified some key areas that we could address with some technology to lower the barriers and make it easier for families to get connected and to access this information. So it was an opportunity for us to pivot and do well and do good and create an application that's really designed to be a community information network. And with that, I'll just kind of, what we're going to do today is part of this ReachWell is going to kind of let you hear from some of your peers and who are using ReachWell, who are sharing how they are dealing with how they're dealing with their issues and their challenges of connecting community in their local areas. So if many of you may already know Brett, may already know Valerie, so I'm just going to play a short little video just to kind of kick us off, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper here into ReachWell and get some questions answered. So bear with me as I play this video. Okay.
Is it playing on your end, Zubin?
It is. Are you not seeing the video?
No, nope. But you might have to share your specific tab if you're not sharing your full screen. There you go.
There it is.
Were you at least able to hear the audio?
No.
No.
So just a minute of awkward silence. Let's start over. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Valerie McDonald. I'm the Pickens County Emergency Manager.
So
are you able to hear it now?
Yep, that sounds great.
Perfect.
Brett Love, I'm the 911 Division Chief for Pickens County Sheriff's Office.
And if you're not familiar with Pickens County, it's where Aspen and Snohomish is. So we're a resort community, and our population goes anywhere from about 17,000 residents up to 50 during what we call high season, which seems to be all the time now.
So what challenges were you previously?
Well, to my fellow EMs who are listening in on that, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. I mean, one of the pillars of emergency management is that we serve all members of our community equitably. And to that point, we know it's imperative that we communicate effectively with everybody. But there have been definite challenges with that. But it's imperative, especially with public safety. And in spite of our best efforts and improvements along the way, we knew we were falling short. Situation initially came to light, at least in a glaring light, in 2018 when we had the Lake Christine fire. Emergency evacuation notices went out in the middle of the night in predominantly a Spanish-speaking neighborhood. I mean, it was total chaos. And during all of our after action reporting meetings that we had, it became obvious that pretty much none of them were signed up to receive emergency alert notifications. And when we delved further into that, they didn't really know about it. We hadn't done much public outreach in Spanish. And if someone got as far as going on the government website to sign up for Pickens alerts, there weren't any directions in Spanish.
And really what it comes down to is when there's an emergency or something big happens that the public needs to know about, that messaging comes to our dispatch center and our dispatchers. The trouble is a lot of times we can't even get the emergency message out in English because we've got one call taker taking as many 911 calls as they can as it's happening. Our dispatcher is coordinating all the units and the response. And the messaging sometimes gets pushed to 5, 10, 15 minutes after the event happened, which is just the way it goes. When you add another layer that our dispatchers have to do of providing a translation to that, and with our capabilities, we're only sending it out in Spanish. It sometimes delays the entire message that we want to get out to 100% of the public by trying to take care of the smaller percentage that doesn't speak English.
Probably about 6-8 months ago, a local reporter did a 3-part, I'll call it an expose, on Pickens County and Garfield and Eagle. I mean, there's a lot of overlap between our counties, and we're all considered one big valley, which did a 3-part series on our deficiencies in communicating with non-English speakers, or more accurately, English as a second language people. And it was scathing, it was painful, but that's what made me remember meeting Zubin, who was the founder and CEO of Reachwell at the SEMA conference the prior year. So what we did with Zubin, it sounded like Reachwell was a good option for us and might be just what we needed, but as everyone who's sitting out there knows, it's just another system, and it's a lot of work to bring these things in. There's, it's scary. We didn't want to undermine our current Everbridge Pickens alert system. You just never know what's going to happen. So to ease pain and to give it a try, we set up a trial with Reachwell, and I set up a user group of about 25 Spanish-speaking people, and some other languages were included as well, since Reachwell get your messages over 100 languages. So we set up a test group, and we just pounded them with messages. What we had asked them to download the app, pick an alert, and pick their language. And then we spent some time debriefing with them. Was it easy to download the app? And most importantly, the quality of the translation. And all reports were good.
So what value have you gained from ReachWell?
Well, like I said in the beginning, we really have an obligation and a responsibility to serve all of our residents equitably, and getting emergency information out to that group is critical. I mean, if we can't warn people, the result is so much worse. So it's important that we do that. So it's the right thing to do. But as an emergency manager who was constantly getting beat up from Latinx advocacy groups that would call me, or the paper articles in the paper, I feel like we came up with a solution. I mean, we actually got it done and accomplished our goal with ReachWell. So I think Brett will be able to talk to that as well, because he was right in the firing line with me.
The biggest benefit and value in ReachWell is having that translation piece happen completely outside the center. Our dispatchers send the message in English. Don't have to worry about any kind of translation, basically taking us out of the translation business. And really that's the crux of the value. To be able to have our messages available in 100 different languages, not just Spanish, without us having to do anything in the center while we're managing the crisis or the incident.
We've done what we can to eliminate barriers. We kept hearing people didn't want to sign up on government websites, so they don't have to with ReachWell. It doesn't collect any data, and it's not a government website. So we've eliminated that data, and the translation has improved dramatically.
So what did you need to do to get started with ReachWell?
So for us, really, it was fairly smooth. There was one piece that we had to convert that I understand is now corrected. As far as getting it up and running, we ran a couple tests. We got some feedback, and within 10 minutes of providing the feedback, they had that fixed. So it was a really seamless process. They've taken our feedback. They've worked with us really well. It's flowed into our system just about perfectly. And we use Everbridge as our emergency messaging system.
The way I look at it, it will be a long, slow roll. We're not just going to hit it hard for a month and call it good. We'll continue to push out educational information about it. It's the same as we do with our pick and alert system. So I think where we'll see the huge value, and it's not the way I would like it to go, but it's probably what's going to happen. When we do have our next emergency, be it a wildfire or whatever it is, I think we'll probably get 3,000 enrollments downloads that day.
And one thing to add, we put on the bottom of all the alerts that we send out, the ReachWell information, and we do that in Spanish. So when we have that big event and they get an emergency message, they'll see right there, hey, if you want this in another language or in Spanish, download the app, and the link's right there. So we try to make it easy, and we try to use that as our ongoing kind of advertisement for the service.
We went live probably 2 months ago, and it's been a success. I mean, I wish our enrollment numbers were higher, but we're working on that. And the bottom line is we've solved the problem of translating pick and alerts in a hurry. So it's there, it's available, and we're working on increasing our enrollment.
Great. So let's see if I can unshare and reshare. So in addition to Valerie and Brett, I see that there's a few other ReachWell partners here on this call today. So we've I'm not going to call it request. They weren't, I didn't ask them to say or do anything, but for future reference, I'll share a map of those partners that we are working with, including Kimberly over at Larimer and Carl up here in Garfield. The idea here with ReachWell is that, and one thing you heard Valerie say is that she wishes her enrollment numbers were up. And one thing that we've understood and discovered about ReachWell and about rolling this out is that it requires community partnerships and leveraging the community network that ReachWell creates. So in Pitkin, since we've had that video, we've been able to engage with the local area school system, as we have in several other counties. And that's allowing us to roster in large numbers of low-income and migrant families to get them immediately connected to those messages. So that partnership, that idea of reaching out to fellow PIOs, letting them know about ReachWell and encouraging them to help get the word out about ReachWell is a critical piece and one of the best practices and lessons learned in making sure that all vulnerable families in the community are able to get and receive this information. So as a platform itself, ReachWell really is a community information network. Working with emergency dispatch and managers is one part of that. We were just on the phone with Human Services earlier today. So working with Human Services, public health agencies are another fit in here that are communicating directly with our residents. We also get to work with nonprofits that support families and make sure that their basic needs are being met and served. Families are connecting directly with them. And again, we get to work with school systems across the state, across the country, to make sure that those families are well educated and that they're well supported as well. So we're working our way through the state. We've got a few more verbal commits. It's budget season right now, so we're excited to grow our presence throughout Colorado. So as I mentioned, I think Kimberly's on this call supporting both Jackson County and Larimer County. Steve Silverman's a great partner of ours there in Boulder County. We've got Carl here representing Garfield, Chris Stewart, and then Uray and Gunnison as well. So Scott over there in Gunnison will be joining, and then hopefully we'll get to see a few more supporting us. So the other part I wanted to share about this before I jump on is that, particularly here in the West, right? They've got the Valley, and you've got large commuter traffic. So one thing we're building here between Garfield, Pitkin, Eagle is that we have a kind of a campaign going that we're launching to educate families in those areas that all the counties are on ReachWell. So you can download one app and be able to access translated notifications and alerts for all of their counties as they cross borders between home, work, and school. So we'll touch a bit more about that. So one thing that Brett and Valerie mentioned was that, those actively engaged families are going to happily, jump on and share their personal contact information. But what about those other families, like the undocumented families or those who have distrust in government? They may or may not be willing to share that personal information to get those get those text message alerts. The other thing we know is that low-income families phone numbers change very frequently. So when you do get their phone number and you're pushing that alert via text, if those families' phone numbers change, you have to rely on them to be able to update that phone number, which doesn't happen very often. The other thing worth considering around an app is that a lot of low-income families are using very old, very inexpensive devices. So the app needs to be enabled to work on those devices as well. And they can't take up much memory whatsoever either. Obviously, language is a huge piece here. The state bill is driving the study right now for that. We also know low-tech families are going to have a hard time receiving information. So requiring things like email and signups is going to prevent them from getting informed. And then there's also low-literate families that we need to support. So ReachWell as a platform was really designed to overcome those hurdles by not requiring logins for undocumented or unverified contacts. We will continue to push messages to low-income families whose phone numbers change, or be able to enable them to receive those messages on those old devices. We can message in over 135 user-selected languages. And then it's really easy to utilize this app. We really removed all the friction we could for both the users as well as the senders of messages. And low literate families can actually hear these messages in English or their native language. So again, simplicity, removing friction is what this is all about. As Brett mentioned, connecting with their emergency management system, which was Everbridge. It was really 2 steps. It's really establishing the connection, and then they do need to update their templates in their emergency management messaging system to incorporate the reach well notifications. So that way there's 0 changes in any operating procedures. There was 0 training required upon dispatchers, other than notifying those dispatchers that, hey, we've got another path to inform our community. So, and that's called reach well. Outside of that, there was really nothing that any dispatcher really needed to learn or know about reach well in order to inform that community. So the way the platform works is those messages just get created and generated as they normally would. And then it's going to get pushed out as that template instructs. Maybe it's a text, an email, an iPause that could generate a WIA alert or an opt-in sign-up alert through email or text or call. And then as all of that's happening simultaneously, these reach well alerts are getting pushed out as well. So here we've got, for example, NOCO alert, which is Larimer County. They generate their message and it automatically gets pushed out here on reach well. For the user, for the family, or for the public resident, we're allowing them to connect with this information without any personal information. So they simply download the ReachWell app, encourage everybody to do it, follow any of our counties so you can track and see what's going on and what type of alerts are going out across our gorgeous state. And they can, all that you need to do is download this, set your own language, and then add the channel that you wish to follow. So let's say I work in Eagle, but I live in Garfield and my kid goes to school in Pitkin, right? I could be following all 3 of those channels to be receiving emergency alerts for all of those areas. And those are going to come over to me in my language. In addition to that, the other benefit as a kind of public benefit here is that families can follow nonprofits like family resource centers, things like immigrant refugee centers are also on here. They can be following their schools, and then we look forward to bringing on more partners like human services and cities and communities. So not just emergency alerts can be driven through here, but families would also be able to receive public informational notifications too, and service announcements. So like I'd mentioned, we have 136 languages that we're supporting in, and that doesn't have limits when these notifications come across. So let me play with this slide a little bit here and see if I can. So here comes an alert. This is what that alert is going to look like. It's going to have the ReachWell logo. It's going to let that user know who that alert is from, and then a little preview of what that alert is in that push notification. Okay. Upon tapping that push notification, it's actually going to drive them directly here to this message. And this message is going to be exactly the same content and information that was generated and published through the emergency messaging system. Families are going to get this message with formatting. So Carl, Kimberly, I know you'll be excited to see that we have formatted messages now in here, as well as links. So if you have content that you wish to drive your residents to, maybe it's a map, maybe it's a video, Maybe it's a document with evacuation routes. You can just drop that link in that same message, and then we'll be able to grab that link, convert it into a hyperlink so that your residents can tap that for more information. And then if you're following an incident, users would simply view that right here on the homepage of their channel. So on the homepage of this channel, you have a banner that rotates. This can be used to promote upcoming courses, classes, other information. They're linkable banners, so that users can tap on those and drive them to that content. And then again, here's a view of previously sent messages, just basically like your newsfeed. Okay. So just a few other pieces that we thought would be helpful to share today. In ReachWell, there are other functionalities built in beyond messaging, such as a resource tab that can be used for emergency preparedness. There's PSAP contact information you can put in here. There's links to maps. Really, any information you think would benefit your residents around managing through an emergency or preparing for an emergency. Potentially even disaster recovery resources like COAD or VOAD resources could very easily be populated in here, driving your residents to those appropriate resources. In addition to that, oftentimes our partners are incorporating things like wellness resources in here, mental health support. Here in Denver, we have the STAR program. We partner with Servicios de la Raza, who runs that in Denver County, for non-punitive types of response. There's access to medical information, food, housing, provider finders, even substance abuse content can be driven through here. There's calendar functionality that we could be pulling calendar content off the web as well. And I'll just share a little bit about, connecting our community. So here is an example. Back to Larimer County, we could do one in Pitkin County as well. But with ReachWell, those emergency alerts are getting pushed out from their dispatch center, and they're updating families via their different mediums or via ReachWell. Well, we're excited to also bring on a different channel like this Town of Estes Park. So those who are following the Town of Estes Park on ReachWell can also be receiving those same NOCO alerts that are going out from dispatch. So the reason why they might be following the Town of Estes Park might be different, right? They might be looking for event information or public utility information on their town's ReachWell channel. And then they're also going to be receiving those NOCO alerts there too. Similarly, we get to work with Thompson School District, which is also in Larimer County. So as families of their school, Peakview K8, they're getting the front office newsletter, they're getting their teacher messages. But when there's an emergency alert that's going out, those alerts are also able to be driven directly to those families who are following their school and looking for information. So if you were unfortunate enough to be part of the swatting calls in February of this year, like I was at my kid's school, it probably was a bit of a panic because families were getting information from their emergency managers or most likely from news media about what's going on, but the school systems weren't necessarily prepared to handle that emergency communication. So with this tool, we're able to deliver those emergency alerts directly to the families through their schools about incidents that might be happening at their school. Okay. So we'll be at the Colorado School Safety Conference. Would love to meet you all there as well. So that's a few other pieces here around connecting with the community, right? So those community partners are not only really essential in informing the community, they're really essential in launching to our community. So these are our onboarding steps that we take our dispatch centers and emergency managers through. Again, it's about a 1-hour meeting to do setup and training. We're going to do at least 5 days of live testing So that way we can take actual messages and be able to accurately see how those are translating. I recall from one of our emergency partners, they had tried to use a AI translation tool to push some information about an ice jam out, but instead it was translating it into ice marmalade. We want to make sure we're testing against that to make sure none of that stuff happens. I think the same Birch when Eagle was talking about, other translation tools, translating things like gypsum or eagle into those actual nouns in those languages instead of retaining them as proper nouns. So that's where the live testing comes in. We also have a partner launch meeting. So this is like we just completed with Carl and Tom up in Garfield, where we had a network of PIOs on a quick 30-minute call, gave us an opportunity to introduce this to them and introduce them to the launch materials, and got their commitment and partnership to promote Garco Alert to their community, not just from dispatch and the PIO that's in the emergency managers, but also leveraging the other PIOs and bringing in other community partners to push this information out locally to drive subscriptions. So then that leads us to our final step of actually launching to our families with the content that we've created. So this is mostly from BOCO Alert, which is the Boulder County content. That's going to include things like posters that can be hung up in public high traffic areas like rec centers and libraries, DMVs. That's also going to include little postcards that we can build and ship to you all that can be stacks, or sometimes these might be little business cards. There's also newsletters that can go out, templates for your newsletter that's going out. And then we have web and social media content as well. So here's a quick little example of a social media.
No, hombre, hay otro accidente. Ojalá y los pobres estén bien y que no pasen mayores. Amiga, que cerraron la calle por otro accidente. Oiga, si supo la nueva. No, pues que nos viene otra tormenta invernal, pero poderosa. No, hay fuego y aquí cerca tenemos que estar al pendiente. Comadre, es muy fácil enterarse de lo que pasa y al instante con la aplicación de Reachwell. Ahí encontrará los mensajes de alerta del condado de Pitkin en español y es muy fácil de instalar. Ya ve que las emergencias no esperan. Descargue la aplicación ahora.
So that's most of the information we were excited to present today. 100% of this was built and developed based on feedback from our community, from our partners. Lita, Boco, Pitkin, Garfield, Delta, all of these partners have helped us build and design this. We also have some really strong analytics that we look forward to sharing with our partners. Things like understanding which languages your families and residents are selecting to receive their information. This advises us a lot about a community. So if you didn't know you had Malayalam as a language in your community, with Reachwell, we'll inform you of that. We'll also let you know active number of subscribers and messages sent and message deliveries as well. So with that, I'd love to just kind of field some questions from the team and hear which of these best practices might be helpful. What other questions you may have that I may have presented. You can feel free to use the chat or just unmute yourself. And while we wait for that, I'll just share again the steps to get the Reachwell application. So you're going to go to the App Store. You can just download it, search for Reachwell. You can choose your language, and then you can add the channels that you wish to follow. All right.
So Zubin, I know that this is not a shy group, but while they are unmuting themselves, I would just like to ask, what kind of adoption rates have your communities seen, and how quickly does it take to get adoption going in a community after you onboard them? Because it sounds like you've had some good success stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll always be honest and transparent, as our partners know. We've had some great successes and some not so great experiences, and I think it really comes down to partnerships. Your local community partnerships is going to be the deciding factor as to how well this is going to be adopted. So in areas like Garfield, I think we're like topping up around 1,000 now, and that's primarily due to a partnership with the local Spanish-speaking radio station, which is really the one key partner we've thus far engaged with. And going out and trying to put this out on your agency's social media, throwing it up on your website, and thinking that the work is done is not going to result in success. Well, I guess success could be defined in many ways. It's not going to result in what our expectations here at ReachWell are of being of reaching a critical mass of families, should we say. So the partnership idea of identifying the key PIOs, making sure that they are pushing this content and that they are incorporating this information into their communication is pretty critical. The other partnerships with the school systems is also extremely important, and the piece around the nonprofits is fairly new. We're trying to do our best to assist in that through our network of community navigators and promotoras, so that we're educating the promotoras and navigators across the state around which counties are utilizing ReachWell, so that they can be sharing that information directly with their families. So oftentimes our network is not always lining up with the agencies that are participating. So sometimes it's a little bit of a grassroots effort, but it does have a lot to do with the partnerships that we're aligned with.
That's great. Looks like Joe Benkert's got his hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when I was running the 911 Colorado Foundation and we were running ads through the Colorado Broadcast Association statewide, directing people to a site where they could access their local ENS sign-up page, emergency notification sign-up page. While we were running the ads, we had kind of a level, rate of people come to the site to go to different ENS pages and signed up. Whether or not we were running the ads, well, we never had a big public emergency while we were running the ads. The big floods of 2013 happened the day we were actually driving back from recording the ads, the TV and radio ads in Montrose. And after events like that or a wildfire, we would get a big spike in people signing up, because it brought it to mind that there was much more urgency to it. And so I think what you're going to see, as in the video, the woman from Aspen was predicting, is when you have an event, that's when you'll sign up. Too little, too late, but good for the next time.
Yeah. Yeah, we never want to wish for an event either, but yeah, we've heard similar testimonial, Joe, from other emergency managers as well. Like, they'll sign up when it happens. Fortunately, I'm not going to use the Q word. I'll just stop. Just stop talking. Jody, go ahead. I'm not sure, Jennifer, I have to do anything on Google Meet.
No, Jody might be on mute.
User error. My apologies if you covered this in the middle of the presentation. Somebody walked into my office and I had to turn it down for a couple minutes. But I see that it's app access without personal information on your slide there. Is it a one and done sign up or opt in, or is there any kind of profile maintenance that people have to do? Or they just opt in, they pick their regions, and then they just get them until they either cancel it or opt out?
That's the basic level requirement, is one and done. I'll give you a little bit more color here. So Larimer County has also added a level there, and that allows for users to sign up to receive their opt-in alerts through the ReachWell app as well. So if they wish to, they don't have to, but if they wish to, they can through ReachWell click on the banner and they can submit their personal contact information, and that's going to allow them to get their text, email, call alerts, however they choose. But yeah, it's really kind of it's a one and done. It's one and done. So they download and add their channel, and we're not prompting them. We're not a marketing agency. We're not a marketing platform, should I say. So like when Valerie was talking about there's no data that we're capturing, she's right to an extent. The data we're capturing is really just aggregate data. We want to know what languages people are in need of. We might want to collect some information around what people might be clicking on, so we know what kind of resources we should be providing, but we're not tracking any individuals, and that is part of the core value here at ReachWell. We're a public information network. We're not a marketing agency. We're not selling this information. We're not marketing to these to these residents.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, and if any other users who are on ReachWell want to chime in and add any color, I certainly don't have to maintain the stage here.
Well, Zubin, I know that the legislature is paying attention to the issue of language access for emergency notification systems, and they did order a study through House Bill 23-1237 last year to study how emergency notifications are getting out to communities who speak a language other than English. So that study's getting underway. I'm sure we'll hear more about that when the study findings are presented to the General Assembly early next year. And I really appreciate you coming and presenting to our task force. Does anybody have any questions or other comments that they'd like to ask Zubin?
Yeah, Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, no questions. Just comments, because we did struggle for quite a while trying different things. Am I coming through?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. We struggled with trying to translate messages, and this definitely has been the game changer for us. But we did see, big increases when we did have an emergency going on, when we had the Spring Creek fire start. We do advertise on the Spanish-speaking radio, and we're continuing to do so. We also advertise on Facebook, and we pushed that back out on Facebook when the fire started. And then I think also we have a board member that's a town council member that's the chair of the Garfield County Latino Community Group, and she's also been very helpful in helping get us get the word out on this. But for us, it's definitely been very helpful for us in getting our messages translated.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Carl. Appreciate that. Yeah, and if you all have ideas, we're always open to that as well. We're always building, always trying to improve and execute on what your needs are. If you've seen something else out there that's interesting, or maybe your existing messaging system has some shortfalls in some particular areas, we'd love to hear about that and see if we can build that in to support it if we're not already doing so. There's a lot of use cases out there And I feel like we've got most of them handled. So.
That's great. Do you have a slide with your contact information on it?
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, and if anybody would like to see pricing, feel free to contact us. We've tried to build this to be really equitable and affordable for all. I can also drop my email address and information here in the chat. I'm just Zubin at reachwellapp.com.
Great. And it looks like Connie had a question in chat. Do you have an increase in interest when the events are not local, like the hurricane or the fires in Maui?
That's really a curious question, Connie. I don't know if we've measured or looked at that. I think that the national news brings it all to everybody's attention. So I think it might be an opportunity for us to leverage some of that to promote Reach Well during those national events that capture the national attention, to ask local communities, are you prepared? I like that idea a lot. Are you doing anything, or have you done anything to drive users or residents to subscribe to alerts during national events that you found to be useful?
Go ahead, Connie.
I was just going to say, I'm going to find this going to be very useful as I talk to the smaller agencies when we've been discussing the House bill coming up, and to look at something that is usable, and what Carl said is, and that it's not a burden on the dispatcher when they put out that emergency notification. And I'm very glad to have this information to be able to pass on. And yes, I do use national events.
Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, and just kind of follow up. I think for us, we didn't have to wait like a year to get this in our budget cycle. I think the pricing for us was reasonable, that we could just move forward with it right away. It was also extremely easy to set up and maintain.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Zubin? Well, Zubin, I want to thank you very much for your time today, and Dan as well. And if you need anything from us, let us know. And we will put this up on our YouTube channel for those who could not attend in person today. And if you have any other closing comments, the floor is yours.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. Like all of our partners know, if you have ideas, if you see a use case, if you're curious about it, let us know. We're really here to partner to build a platform that's inclusive and equitable for all members of our community. That's really our mission and goal here. So yeah, bring us those ideas, and would love to, if there's an opportunity to partner with you on those, great. Even if you just have an idea and have something you'd like to share or educate us about, we would really appreciate that. So thank you for the opportunity. It's really good meeting everyone, and look forward to seeing you here in Colorado at a upcoming event. If not, SEMA in the spring.
Sounds great. Thanks so much. And thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yep. Thank you.